and welcome everybody to Wednesday Night Live. So we've got a spooky horse, and really what we want to do is try and get to the bottom of why they're spooky. And there can be a lot of different reasons for spooky horses. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and ask myself some questions. Is the horse naturally spooky? And what I mean by that is, does the horse spook in the paddock when he's in the paddock with the herd? Or is it only when he comes away from the herd and he's either on his own or with you? Does he only spooky when he's near humans? Is it when he's near certain humans? Is the horse spooky both on the ground and under saddle? Is the horse spooky only with particular riders? When does the spooky come out? Is the horse always on high alert? Is the horse constantly looking around and checking his surroundings? Or is it only under particular circumstances or on particular days or at particular times or all that sort of stuff? So we really need to start asking ourselves some questions, because even though probably a few of our approaches are going to be similar, a spooky horse is a spooky horse, right? Even though some of our approaches are going to be similar in regards to solving this issue or helping the horse with this issue, it really helps to have a little bit more of an understanding as to what you're dealing with. Obviously, if you've got a horse that's spooky in the paddock and spooky with you, then you're dealing with a naturally spooky horse who just generally needs to build confidence. If you've got a horse that is fine in the paddock and he's spooky when he's out of the paddock away from his friends, then you've got a horse that becomes insecure when he's not with his herd, and he hasn't realized yet that you are his herd, or his handler can be his herd, and his handler ultimately can be his leader and can protect him from whatever it is going on out there. So they're kind of, you know, the solutions might be the same, but we need to understand what we're dealing with so we can come in at a different level, I guess you'd say. So is the horse naturally spooky? Do they do it in the paddock? And I really don't want you to guess this one. I literally mean I want you to go out and observe your horse on more than one occasion, and certainly see if the horse is reactive in the paddock, depending on, you know, when things happen. Now, if you've got a nice quiet little paddock that nothing goes wrong in, or there's no external stimulus, you might have to wait for a while for a bird to fly up or something like that. And but really we want to know, when the horse is in the paddock, if there is an external stimulus, do they spook and run away and do the action that we're worried about, or do they just kind of accept it and go, oh yeah, that's fine, and they're able to deal with it a lot better? That is going to give you a lot of really valuable information in regards to where the horse is coming from, so to speak. So if you have a naturally spooky horse who seems to be spooky even in the paddock, it could be for a number of reasons. It could be learned behavior from the mare or his other herd mates, depending on when he was put in with other herd mates. And it may not even be the herd that he's in now, but it could be. It could have been a herd that he was in previously. It could be the herd that he's in now. It could have been imprinted on him from his mother, anything like that. The horse could be, and I see this a lot, overfed and underworked. So a horse that is being fed but is underworked is got all this energy. It's kind of like giving a kid a red cordial and then asking them to sit still in the corner. So a horse that's full of energy and needs to get that energy out doesn't understand that he's full of energy and he needs to get his energy out. What he's on is like he's on coffee. So he's constantly stimulated. He's got all this energy and he's looking around. Oh, that something flew out of that tree. Oh, something made a noise over there. Oh, and that can really, really, really make a horse spooky, depending on, you know, and when I say overfed, underworked, horses are naturally designed to be on grass all the time. So when we're adding additional feed to that, grains or feeds that you buy from the produce, or, you know, maybe we don't have grass, so we're feeding them lucerne hay or whatever. I'm not going to get into nutritional values here. Some feeds are going to react differently with your horses. you really need to investigate. I mean, you know, we've got all the old wives' tales where it's like, oh, the oats will set them off, and this will set them off, and that will set them off. And every horse is different. I feed all of my horses oats, and they're completely fine. And but I know that some horses have a really adverse reaction to them. A lot of our modern feeds have molasses and things like that. That's really high sugar content. So again, that's like your horse eating lots of lollies and having all this sugar surging through his veins, and he just doesn't know what to do with it. And like I said, he doesn't cognitively process. He doesn't think, oh, I'll just do a few laps around the paddock and I'll be right. He just starts to be reactive to his environment. So overfed and underworked is something that I see all the time. And you should be changing your feed, as in increasing and decreasing your feed as per your horse's workload and nutritional requirements. So, you know, the days that you're riding your horse are the days that you should be feeding, you know, a reasonable feed. The days that you are not riding your horse, you should be dropping that feed to a maintenance dose. Thank you for everyone who's starting to comment. Hi, Karen. Hi, Julie. Hi, Val. Hi, Mummy. Hey, Nancy. And hey, Hillary. What's Hillary saying? Does anyone want to borrow my pig to test? So a pig can be very frightening. Hillary does have a pig at home, and it kind of pops out from places, and all of her horses are pretty used to it now, but it can be very challenging to new horses when they arrive on the property. The horse is in an understimulating environment. So if you've got a horse that's in a very small, flat, basic paddock, and the water's here, and you feed them here, and there's really, you know, minimal grazing, and there's not really much for the horse to do, that kind of environment can make the horse reactive and spooky simply because they're understimulated. Horses, again, they're designed to eat grass all day, but they're also designed to forage for that grass and walk kilometers and kilometers, or miles and miles if you're tuning in from America, every single day to get that fodder. So that act in itself is, you know, keeping the body moving, keeping the energy not low, because they have enough energy to be able to get away from predators and things like that, but it keeps them at a neutral level of energy, if you like, with just enough in reserve to be able to spike and run, and then walk for miles, and spike and run and walk and graze for miles. So, you know, if a horse is in an understimulating environment and they're not having to walk for miles, then you're potentially creating that overfed, underworked situation, or, you know, fed and understimulated situation. If they're not getting even that mental stimulation, it can cause a lack of mental stimulation, can cause an overreactivity to general things in the environment. So if they're in a small paddock, if they've got no friends in the paddock, that's a kind of multiple aspect kind of a thing. Horses that don't have friends in the paddock are unable to sleep well, because normally they would, you know, someone would be the watch and someone would rest, and then someone else would be the watch and then someone else would rest, and they would change that watchman role so everyone managed to sleep. So if you've got a horse that's got no one in the paddock with him, he's not really able to get into good deep sleep because he's too busy keeping an eye out on everything. And that leads us into another area of just simply, if your horse doesn't have friends, then he's the only one responsible for keeping an eye on potential predators, and so that causes him to be on high alert all the time. So even if your horse is in a paddock with friends at the moment, if they've previously been in a paddock where they've been isolated, they may bring that behavior to the new herd, because it's a learned behavior of, watch out, I've got to look, I've got to look, I've got to look. I'm sure if I went and dropped you in the middle of the bush and you had to sleep out there for a few nights in a row, and that wasn't something that you were used to, then you would quite quickly develop the ability to hear a twig snap and think, what was that? And hear the bushes rustling and think, what was that? Because that's instincts kicking in, and that's you going into survival mode, I guess you'd say. So your horse could be in survival mode from a past situation where he just hasn't made the switch to, now I'm in a herd, everyone else is looking out for me, and I'm fine to, you know, be a horse, and, you know, they're looking out as well as me. The lack of stimulation with nothing to explore can start to cause the horse to have reactivity due to boredom, I guess, or understimulation. Just like a dog will potentially become naughty if he's locked up and he is understimulated. He'll start pulling washing off the line, or he'll start digging holes, or he'll start doing things like that from a lack of stimulation. Well, your horse isn't necessarily going to have negative behaviors like digging holes and things like that, but they can develop a reactivity because it's something for them to do. So yeah, a duck flies up, oh, I'll run away from the ducks. You know, a bird flies out of a tree, oh, I'll run away from the bird. All that sort of stuff can happen simply due to an understimulating environment. So that's definitely something to consider and something to address. Definitely there's multiple ways to address an understimulating environment depending on which nature your environment is understimulating for your horse. And the other thing that could be happening here is the horse is in an environment with other spooky horses, and they're learning the behavior. Sometimes they can learn the behavior as a learned response or a negative behavior. Sometimes they're learning the behavior just in terms of a game. You know, oh, we're running, this is exciting because we're running away from something. So really the spookiness starts to turn into something fun because we get spooked at something and then we run around the paddock and we have a play, and then, you know, we rest and then we get spooked at something else and we run around the paddock. So they start to entertain themselves, and particularly you'll see young horses do this kind of behavior. And generally, if you've got a really good mix of a really good herd with some old horses and some young horses and some mares and some geldings and all the rest of it, you'll have a pretty decent mix where maybe one or two of the young horses might do that kind of behavior, but the older horses aren't spooking, and so the younger horses don't learn it as a pattern. They learn it as a game and they grow out of it. Whereas if you've only got young horses, soon enough that just becomes a pattern and it becomes a learned response. So is the horse only spooky when he's near humans? This again could be learned behavior. The horse could be worried about being wrong. The horse could be worried about getting in trouble for spooking. The horse could be simply on high alert because he's learned to associate human contact with potentially a negative behavior. Is it just certain humans? Is it just certain people that trigger the horse? So I'm not necessarily saying people that the horse is frightened of, but that could be a factor. But it's also humans who lack confidence or a little bit spooky or a little bit jumpy or a little bit tentative. They can create their horses to be like that because the horse starts to pattern that behavior. The horse starts to take on that personality trait from the owner. You know, we always say our horse is a reflection of us. So certainly humans that lack confidence can begin to put that trait into their horses unknowingly. And then it's kind of like you get that snowball effect where the human was nervous to start with, and then now the person's, and now the horse is getting nervous. And so then the horse looks to the human for help, but the human's scared of the horse because the horse is starting to react. And then, you know, neither one can get comfort from the other. And, you know, you really start snowballing there. Past trauma can be another one. So if you've got a rescue horse, or doesn't even need to be a rescue horse, it can just sometimes be a horse that again is reflecting behaviors from a past owner or a past environment or trainer or something like that. And you can get horses that are a little bit jumpy in that regard, and oftentimes it's just time that is going to help let them overcome that. Leadership and trust is not yet established. So we sometimes forget that when we get a new horse or we bring a new horse into our life, that horses don't automatically go, oh, you're a human, yes, I'm going to trust you. You have to earn that trust. You have to show the horse that they can trust you, and that can take time. So if it is a new relationship or a fairly new relationship, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. It just means that the leadership's not yet established, and there are definitely exercises that you can do in order to strengthen that leadership and establish that leadership and confidence in you. it might be an issue where the trust has actually been violated. So the horse has been in a circumstance and you have been unable to help them through it, or in the horse's mind, you have been unable to help them through it. So for example, you've got a horse that is worried about, let's say, crossing a bridge or something like that. And so you approach the bridge and the horse doesn't want to cross the bridge. And so you do everything that you can to get the horse over the bridge. And sort of right near the end of the bridge crossing, a duck flies out of the water and the horse jumps and runs forward and gets over the bridge, but gets spooked. Well, in that moment, the horse says, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have gone over the bridge. I knew that there was something scary. And so in that moment, in the horse's mind, the trust has been violated. Oftentimes it's something that we manufacture ourselves because we don't understand the psychology of the horses and we don't understand the way that they process things. So again, a horse, let's say we're out on a trail ride and the horse is frightened of a tree stump. And we say, come on, horse, go up to the tree stump. It's only a tree stump. And we start kicking him and tapping him with the whip and trying to really push him up to this tree stump. And the horse's psychology and the horse's physiology is saying, run away, run away, run away, run away, run away. And the whole time we're forcing him to go up to the stump, 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 the horse is going, I can't trust you, I can't trust you, I can't trust you, I can't trust you. So his level of training may cause him to obey, and his level of training may cause him to go up to the stump despite him wanting to not go up to the stump. And you might think, oh, good, I got what I wanted. I got the horse to go up to the stump. But what the horse is saying is, you violated my trust and I can't trust you anymore. So if you've had an experience like that with your horse, what we need to do is learn the psychology and the physiology and thinking behind what is actually going on for your horse when he's frightened, what's going on for your horse when he's spooking at something. And then we can start to build his confidence around things that he's frightened of in an appropriate way, not in a dominating, you will obey me way, because that is a violation of trust. And so next time the horse is frightened of something, he's going to think to himself, well, I can't trust you because last time this happened, you made me go up to something and really we should have been running away from it. So there's a whole process in regards to that I teach in my clinic. So I'm not saying let your horse run away. But what I am saying is that there is a way to do it where you're adhering to the horses the way that they would do it in nature, so to speak. And then the final thing might simply be that you've got an unhandled horse or a horse that hasn't had much handling. So, or a horse that is linked on to a particular person. So I've got my little Millie who I got at the colt start recently, and she is very, very hooked onto me. She's very, you know, she trusts me. I can, you know, I'm riding her, obviously. I can saddle her up. I can do all of those things with her. And it was really interesting today. I was out in the paddock and I had the saddle and the saddle pad and everything there. And I had to take a call, and I was just about to saddle her up and I had to take a call. And so I'm on the phone and Phil walks up and he goes to put the saddle pad on, and she just backed out of there. She just kept going backwards and backwards, and he kind of showed it to her, and he hasn't handled the horse at all. He hasn't really, I mean, she's probably, you know, seen him around, obviously, when he does the feeds, but I'm not sure that he's even led her in a halter. Like, he's had very, very minimal interactions with her, and she's had very, very, very minimal interactions with human beings. So she was born on the property of the person that I got her off, and so she knows him, and she went through an injury when she was 2 and was looked after by his father. So she's known one man, his father, and me. And, you know, there's been other people obviously at the colt start and things like that, but not anyone that is particularly handling her or anything like that. So anyway, Phil's there, you know, trying to put the saddle pad on, and she was just not having a bar of it. Wouldn't go near him. She was like, no way, I need to get out of here. And so he said, okay, that's okay, I'll leave it. And I hung up the phone and I got the saddle pad off him. She let me walk straight up to her and put it straight on. Her trust with me is bang on. She was like, yep, I trust you to put that on. With Phil, she was like, I don't know you, I don't trust you, I'm not going to let you do that. So you might simply have a horse that is only got a level of trust with singular people or a singular person, and that's probably a fairly rare occurrence. I don't see a lot of it, but if they've been raised the way that Millie has been, where she's just been in a beautiful big herd of mares and she's had minimal handling and has only met 3 or 4 people in her life, then of course she is going to have a large bubble. She's going to have a large mistrust of people, and she's going to want to meet people and interact with people, you know, before she can trust them and let them handle her or anything like that. There goes Phil walking past in the background. So is the horse spooky on the ground and under saddle? So I've met both kind of horses. I've met horses that are spooky on the ground, but when you ride them, they're fine, which is really interesting. And I've got a lot of theories in regards to that, and I won't go through them all now. Obviously, we're already up to sort of near the half-an-hour mark, and I've got lots of anecdotes and things like that I could share with you in that regard. And then there's lots of horses that are perfectly fine on the ground, and then once you start riding them, the trust goes away or the leadership goes away. So somewhere along the line in the training, the leadership or the trust hasn't crossed over either from the ground to the saddle or from the saddle to the ground. And it's different approaches in training and all that sort of stuff that cause that setup. And it's easy to fix, so to speak, because again, what we're asking is these questions to figure out, well, is the horse absolutely got no trust whatsoever? Or do they just have no trust when they're on the ground? Or do they just have no trust when they're on the saddle? Or do they just have no trust only with some riders? So that's what we're up to now. Is the horse spooky only with some riders? Horses gain confidence and leadership from their rider. And if the rider is worried, the horse is going to pick up on that and the horse is going to reflect that. Basically, what we're saying is, come with me, trust me. And then we say, I'm scared. And the horse says, okay, you're scared. You brought us here. What are you going to do about it? And I say, I'm scared. And the horse goes, okay, well, I'm out. Survival to me means going and finding the person who knows what they're doing, or horse or herd. Survival to me is knowing who the leader is, knowing that they know what they're doing. That's basically, you know, everything that a horse is looking for. So when he starts to do that, he starts to scare us even more, right? Because he starts calling out, he starts getting big, his eyes widen because he's looking, he's saying, where's the herd? Where am I going to be safe? Who's going to keep me safe? Where's the leader? So we start feeding on that even more and we get even more scared. And so then the horse goes, well, you're losing it now. I really need to get away from you. And he really can't trust us. So is the horse only spooky with certain riders? Then that means that that rider and that horse combination needs assistance with trusting each other and building trust in each other. When does the spooky come out? Is it in the paddock? Is it at home? Is it only when you go to outings? Is it, you know, is he fine at outings? Is it only when you go to shows? I think you can pick up on what I'm talking about here, and that's the environmental factor. But is it an environmental factor where you're contributing to the nerves because you're scared, or not even scared, but nervous at a show? You know, like when you've got the pressures of a show and you're nervous and you're thinking about the competition, or you're thinking about your pattern, or you're thinking about what you need to do, then that goes into the horse, because again, the horse doesn't know it's a show. The horse doesn't know that this is important. The horse doesn't know you've paid entry fees and, you know, in our case, flown to America and spent all this money getting out here. The horse doesn't know any of this stuff. All the horse knows is, well, you dragged me to this new venue and now you're behaving strangely. Now you're nervous, or you're the pressure's on. You're asking me to do these things from a different perspective. So again, that's the rider who needs a little bit of help there in regards to remaining calm at a show or at an outing or things like that. Is the rider nervous out on the trail? I know some people who love the arena, want to stay in the arena all the time, don't want to go on the trail. I know some people who love the trail aren't really comfortable in the arena, and I've seen it reflected in horses. I've seen riders go out on the trail who love the trail, and their horses are like, yep, I'm confident, I'm happy, this is fun. And then I've seen riders the same rider go into the arena and go, I don't really know what I'm doing in here. And the horse goes, oh, something's up. I can't trust you in here. Yeah. So we have to really break this down and figure out whether it's us that needs the help, the rider, or whether it's the horse that needs the help. And generally, it's a combination of both things. One thing that we need to realize is that even if we're nervous, you might be thinking, oh, but I'm nervous at home anyway. I'm the same when I'm at home. Well, the horse is probably more confident in filling in gaps for you at home. So when you're at home and you're a little bit worried, the horse has probably got his herd in the paddock. And so he's like, I'm okay. My herd's right there. I'm safe, because he's getting confidence from the environment, and he's getting confidence from the herd being nearby, and he's getting confidence from the familiarity. But when you take him out of that familiar space and then he lacks confidence in where he is, and you continue to lack confidence, then the horse starts questioning, why did you bring me out here? How can I trust you if you're going to bring me out here and then I can't lean on you for guidance, or I can't look to you for leadership? So what are the solutions? What can we actually do to help our spooky horses be less spooky? Number one is ask ourselves all of these questions and really break it down. I mean, you know, those of you that have been to clinics know that I break everything down from trying to figure out where the horse is coming from a psychological perspective, from a physical perspective, from a physiology perspective, from an instinct perspective, where are the humans coming from an instinct, from a physical, from a mental, from a spiritual, all that stuff. Where are we both coming from? What is the cause of this? How widespread is it? How general is it? Is it a physical makeup? Is it how the horse is all the time, or is it only in certain areas? I believe that knowledge is power. So the more knowledge you have about what, you know, who, what, why, where, when, then we can start to address that, and we can start to help our horse. So the solutions are invest in trust building and leadership exercises. So that's number one. Establishing leadership means know what you are doing. So even when you're training at home, know what you're doing, know what you're asking for, know what the outcome is that you're wanting. Have a toolkit, have a toolbox, know what to do when things don't go to plan. When it doesn't go to plan, have something in your toolbox so you can actually help the horse through it. When the horse throws his head up in the air and starts spooking and starts going, oh my God, I'm worried, I'm worried, I'm worried, he doesn't want to feel that way. And what we tend to do is say, don't be naughty, don't be naughty, don't be naughty. And he's saying, I'm not being naughty, I think I'm going to die. So we have to realize that and take that on board and go, let me help you with this. How can I help you? I need to have a toolbox. We need to keep our horse respectful. That's the number one thing, is keeping the horse respectful of us and respectful of our space is the number one thing when it comes to establishing leadership. So, you know, leadership comes in many, many different forms and many, many different exercises, and I don't have the time to share them with you here today. Respecting your space and you being consistent in everything that you do are the two main things that are going to help you establish leadership and maintain respect and trust from your horse. If one day you're letting your horse graze and the next day you're telling him off for it, and then the next day you're letting him graze again, then you're being inconsistent and he can't trust you. Invest in building confidence exercises. So actually take the time to introduce scary things. Now, this is introducing scary things in a positive way And if you don't know how to do it in a positive way, and you don't know the psychology behind it, and you don't know the physiology, don't do it. It's not about just going out there and scaring your horse and saying, good boy, I'm here. That will not work. What we need to do is introduce scary things in a safe environment and be able to read the horse's body language, where he can let us know whether he's accepting of something, whether he's confident with something, and whether he is trusting us surrounding this, whether he's looking to us to gain confidence in whatever it is we're exposing him to. We have to be aware. One of the number one things that I see in this regard is people whose horses are still, and they say, oh, look, he's just standing there and I can rub a plastic bag all over him. We have to realize that the horse standing still isn't necessarily the horse accepting something. The horse standing still could be, the horse could be in freeze mode. So he could be petrified of it, but he's too scared to move, so he's just standing there frozen. And that's probably one of the most misinterpreted things that I see when it comes to anxiety and building confidence in the horse. Invest in your own knowledge. I've just spoken about it. Understand the psychology, understand the physiology, understand how your horse works, that he's an instinctive animal, that he is a herd animal, and there's all sorts of prerequisites, I guess, or there's all sorts of requirements that our horse needs to feel safe and secure and okay in his environment. So the minute we start introducing synthetic things into that environment, so we start introducing abnormal paddock living arrangements. So as soon as we start keeping the horse on their own, we can develop anxiety. As soon as we start to keep our horses in small paddocks with no stimulation, we can increase the horse's lack of confidence or anxiety. As soon as we overfeed the horse and we start filling them full of, stimulants and things like that, and they're unable to manage that energy, we can start to cause reactivity and anxiety. We need to understand the psychology of how your horse deals with frightening things when you're not there. This includes how he would approach something, the physical signs showing whether he's accepting of something. You need to invest in your own knowledge so you know what those things are, so you can actually help your horse through when he does get frightened or when he is spooky. We also need to understand that our horses are coming at these things from a completely different perspective of us. We're empowered with knowledge. Most of the time we go, it's a stump, it's a tarp, it's a ball, it's the ocean, it's a puddle. And we think the horse is thinking from that perspective. The horse is saying, that's a stump, there could be a lion behind it. That's the ocean, there could be an alligator in it. That's a puddle, I don't know how deep it is, I could break my leg. That's where our horse is coming from. That's how they've survived for this long. They're coming from that perspective of, how could this hurt me or compromise my safety? And do I need to be here? So we need to understand and let go of all of our human understanding of circumstances and try and be empathetic, not sympathetic, empathetic towards the horse, and work within his boundaries to try and build confidence around spooky things. The more we have to understand, the more that we do this and the more that we invest in it, the better our horse is going to become at dealing with spooky things. Obviously, I always say this about Cooper, I can pretty much throw anything at Cooper now, and Boogie as well. She's stepped up to the plate. Both of those horses, I can pretty much throw anything at, and both of them are going to go, okay, no worries. Okay, no worries. Even if they're worried, they're going to go, I'm worried, but you're here, so I'm okay. And that's the pattern of behavior. But Gally or Millie or Squizzy, not yet. They're not ready yet. They haven't had the same experiences over and over and over with me to establish that level of trust. Yes, they trust me. Yes, I can do things with them. Yes, I can expose them to a lot of things, but they would spook. If I laid out 50 things for my horses to be frightened of, Gally, Squizzy, and Millie would spook before Cooper and Boogie would spook, if they did it all. I hope that makes sense. So I hope that that helps you in regards to your spooky horse. I will be posting this up as a replay, and it will be up on our YouTube channel as well in the next week or so, more than likely. But please go ahead and tag anyone who may be interested in this topic, who may have a spooky horse. I hope that you got some tips out of that, and I look forward to seeing you all again next Wednesday. Please go ahead and send your topics through. This was a topic sent in by someone, so I do read all your messages, and I do choose topics to talk about, and I'm always looking for new topics. So, I'm getting sad faces and happy laughing faces and angry faces and all sorts of things. So I hope you had I hope you enjoyed the show, and you got some tips out of it, and I hope that you and your horse build confidence and can get over any spooky issues that you have. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. And those of you that are coming on the weekend to the Building Confidence Clinic, I will see you all there. Good night.